9. Highest and best use. By the end of the meeting, Michael and Sarah finally felt like they understood why the appraisal came in where it did. Just as they were getting ready to leave, Sarah pointed to another section of the appraisal report. It read, Highest and best use, current use as improved residential property. She smiled and asked, What does that even mean? It's a great question because one of the most important concepts in appraisal isn't simply what a property is, it's what the property could legally and economically become. This concept is known as highest and best use, and it plays a major role in determining market value. Many people assume an appraiser simply looks at the property as it exists today. In reality, the appraiser also considers whether the current use is the most productive and valuable use of the property under existing market conditions. Let's look at an Arizona example. Imagine you're listing a small, older home on 2 acres near the rapidly growing outskirts of Queen Creek. The home is well maintained, but over the past several years, commercial development has expanded into the surrounding area. New retail centers, medical offices, and restaurants are being built nearby. The current owner has lived in the home for 30 years and simply sees it as a residence. A developer, however, sees something entirely different. To the developer, the greatest value may not be the house at all. It may be the land. This is why appraisers evaluate highest and best use before determining value. To reach that conclusion, appraisers generally apply 4 tests. Is it legally permissible? The first question asks whether the proposed use is allowed by law. This includes reviewing zoning ordinances, deed restrictions, easements, HOA restrictions, environmental regulations, and other legal limitations. Suppose your client owns a residential property and wants to convert it into a restaurant. If local zoning prohibits commercial use, that idea may not represent the property's highest and best use because it isn't legally permissible. This is why experienced Arizona agents encourage buyers to verify zoning before purchasing property for a specific purpose. Is it physically possible? Next, the appraiser asks whether the property can physically support the proposed use. Imagine a buyer wants to build a large warehouse on a 1-acre hillside lot with significant drainage challenges. Even if zoning allows industrial development, the property's size, topography, soil conditions, access, and utility availability may make the project physically impractical. Physical characteristics always matter. Is it financially feasible? The third test considers economics. Can the proposed use reasonably generate enough income or value to justify the investment? Suppose a developer wants to build luxury condominiums in a rural community where demand for that type of housing is extremely limited. Although construction may be legal and physically possible, the project may not make financial sense because buyers simply aren't willing to pay enough to support the development costs. Appraisers evaluate market evidence, not wishful thinking. Is it maximally productive? Finally, the appraiser determines which legally permissible, physically possible, and financially feasible use produces the greatest overall value. This is known as the maximally productive use. Sometimes the answer is simple. The existing residential use already produces the greatest value. Other times, especially in rapidly growing Arizona communities, redevelopment may produce significantly greater value than continuing the current use. Let's return to Michael and Sarah's transaction. Their home was located in a well-established residential subdivision governed by recorded CC&Rs and residential zoning. The neighborhood consisted entirely of owner-occupied homes, nearby schools, parks, and community amenities. The appraiser concluded that continuing to use the property as a single-family residence represented its highest and best use because it satisfied all 4 tests. It was legally permissible, it was physically possible, it was financially feasible, and it produced the greatest market value. Now imagine a different scenario. You're representing an investor purchasing 5 adjoining residential lots along a major roadway in Tucson. Local zoning officials recently approved mixed-use redevelopment, and several national retailers have expressed interest in nearby commercial projects. Although each property currently contains an older single-family home, the highest and best use of the combined parcels may eventually become commercial development rather than continued residential occupancy. This illustrates why appraisers sometimes value land differently than homeowners expect. The property's future potential, not just its current appearance, may significantly influence value. Here's where many agents get into trouble. They hear highest and best use and assume it refers to whatever would make the most money. Not exactly. The most profitable use only matters after the proposed use passes the first 3 tests. If it isn't legal, physically possible, or financially feasible, it cannot be considered the highest and best use, regardless of the potential profit. This is something experienced brokers remember when working with investors, developers, and landowners. Understanding highest and best use helps agents ask better questions, recognize redevelopment opportunities, and avoid making assumptions based solely on a property's current use. As we conclude this chapter, you've learned the fundamental concepts that form the basis of every appraisal: market value, the characteristics of value, the various types of value, and highest and best use. In the next chapter, we'll begin examining the many external and internal factors that influence property values throughout Arizona, from economic conditions and neighborhood trends to physical characteristics and governmental regulations. Broker tip: whenever you're working with vacant land, acreage, investment property, or homes located in rapidly developing areas, don't assume the current use represents the property's greatest value. Encourage clients to investigate zoning, future land use plans, and municipal development projects before making significant purchasing or selling decisions. Online discussion: why do appraisers analyze highest and best use before determining a property's value? Answer: highest and best use helps appraisers determine the use that produces the greatest value while remaining legally permissible, physically possible, financially feasible, and maximally productive. This analysis ensures that the valuation reflects the property's most appropriate economic use rather than simply its current use. 2. How could zoning regulations affect a property's highest and best use? Answer: zoning establishes what types of development and land uses are legally allowed. Even if another use appears more profitable, it cannot qualify as the highest and best use if local zoning or other legal restrictions prohibit it. 3. Why is highest and best use especially important when evaluating investment or redevelopment properties? Answer: investment and redevelopment properties often have value beyond their existing improvements. Understanding highest and best use allows buyers, sellers, and agents to recognize future development opportunities, evaluate land potential, and make more informed investment decisions.